Okay, so I'm going to walk you guys through basically the process that I took to write for Mashable. A little bit about myself. I'm John Rampton. I'm going to teach you today a little bit more than just to write for a site like Mashable. It's more to become an influencer because I feel that's very, very important in the whole process. My name's John Rampton. I'm the founder of Do.com. We're a payments company. I also blog on my own site very, very rarely, but I still blog there. JohnRampton.com. I write for sites like Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc., TechCrunch, Mashable, CNN, Wired, Fortune, and many, many other different sites out there. And this has helped grow my business. To tell you a little bit about my business, Do.com, we're a payments company. We're in a very, very crowded space, right? Does everybody kind of agree? Who else is in a crowded space? Yeah. So in a crowded space, I was able to launch a company. And in 13 months, we were able to go from 0 customers. We actually exhibited here last year, and we had 1,300 customers. It was our first month. We had just barely launched the site. Now we have almost 47,000 customers. These are customers, business owners, just like you guys yourself, and they're out there. And I'm going to teach you guys how I influence people to come to our site, check it out, and sign up. So, also, I've done this. I've worked with a bunch of different companies to help leaders and some of the best and most powerful CEOs in Silicon Valley and all over the world. I still do side work just for fun because I like working with some of these companies. For example, I ghostwrite for several different high-profile CEOs from the companies here. I can't say which ones, obviously, but you can take a gander. I feel it's a very, very, big thing that everybody needs to do. Who here blogs, writes? Who here writes for sites other than your own and you're not paid for it? Whoa, saw at least one hand go down, right? No, I'm just joking. There were a bunch of hands that went down. That's good. So, first and foremost, before we get started, you need to understand the power of stalking. Who here is a good stalker? Like how good? Come on. Oh, you tweeted me. Okay, that's not a real. Come on. Any good stories? You work for the government. I mean, that's pretty good. You have the little black box. Okay, so let me tell you a little stalking story that I have and how good of a stalker I am. So I'm a little bit of a hacker, and I love stalking. I mean, it's fun. I enjoy it. It's way too much fun for me. So when I met my wife, I saw her at a party. This was years back. And I apologize if anybody's heard this story, but it's awesome. So I met her at a party, and I saw her, and she was probably right there. And I go, and I'm all, and I walk straight past her. Right? Like we all do. I'm a modern man. I won't talk to women. So I walked past her, and I go home, and I get on my laptop, and I find her online. And I add her on Facebook and, stalk her a little bit. And she obviously adds me back. Look at myself. And ha, ha, ha. But she adds me back because we have a bunch of mutual friends. And then a couple days later, I see her online, so I chat her. I'm all, hey, how's it going? And she's like, how do I know you? And I'm like, oh, we met at this party. And, it's easy to go through people's feeds and stalk them a little bit online. So I was like, oh, we knew each other because we did kind of, I may have, brushed her shoulder or something. But I then proceeded to tell her this story, blah, blah, blah. She's all, this is bullshit. I do not believe you. She's all, if you know me so well, tell me something about myself that most people wouldn't know. So me being the clever stalker that I am, and with a couple of friends by my side and being an idiot, I then proceed to give her 3 previous home addresses. You guys, I'm good on the whole online stalking. Is anybody else that good? Hopefully there's a couple. I know there are. There's a couple shy people that won't answer, won't raise their hands. I actually, last time I told that story, I had 3 people after come and tell me, they did that, but they couldn't raise their hand. So needless to say, she didn't talk with me for a few weeks, and I had to go through another friend, and years and years of intense therapy. We got married, and we have a baby girl, and I'm couldn't be happier. But why I tell this story is you guys have to be stalkers. If you guys want to write for big sites and get to know people, you really have to dive into them, get to know them, what they're writing about, what they're doing, where they're going, where they're speaking at, what they're participating in, and then know all of that, and then meet them. So for example, I'll tell this story in a little bit, but the first time, by the way, I don't know why this slide's on there. This is me. I kind of tout myself a little bit. But the first site I ever wrote for was Search Engine Journal. Does anybody know Search Engine Journal? They'll take newer people who haven't written for a lot of places, and you write really good information. I saw them at a conference. They typically attend PubCon. Every single year they attend a conference called PubCon, and I saw that, and I met one of the editors, and she basically let me start writing for her. So this was like my launching pad into my writing world. And if you're going to start writing for sites like Mashable and you want to get to that point, you can't just go straight to Mashable and say, I want to write for you, because won't even respond to your email, and they'll ignore it, and they'll think you're an idiot for the rest of your life, and you kind of don't have another chance. So I started writing for Search Engine Journal. And about 2 months later, after I had about 4 posts up and live, I then went to their bigger brother and competitor, Search Engine Watch. Does anybody know Search Engine Watch? Now they're actually, I think, even, but you know, they accepted my posts. And then after that, I went to Business.com. Has anybody written for Business.com? Business.com, if you guys go there right now, if you guys have a blog and that, you go down to the bottom of the page, and now it's infinite scroll unless it'll have a little tiny footer that you have to move your mouse to. It's really annoying. But you move your mouse to, and it says, write for us at the very bottom. And you guys can go apply there. And they ask for experts all the time, so if you guys are an expert at something, go down there and fill in that. And typically they give people who are a little less, have been writing for a long time, professionally writing for lots of other people, they'll give you a chance. And they are a great launching pad, and they're one of the first sites. These first 2 are SEO related, and I'm kind of an SEO guy. I enjoy it. But this one's more business focused. Business.com, obviously it's business focused. This is a site that will accept new authors all the time. So I would suggest every single person, man, they're going to have like an influx. And I'm not paid by them. I should. That'd be awesome. But they're a great site to get started on and to really start your blogging and blogging for bigger sites. They also give you a link, and they're not that harsh with other things. So after that, I went to Huffington Post. And guess who I emailed over at Huffington Post? Ariana. Now, she still does respond to emails, which is weird because she doesn't work there, but she does. So it's really weird. But if you email Ariana at Huffington Post and you say, hey, I'm influential at this subject. And now, when I go into this a little bit, I haven't really talked about why I do this and why you should do it and what you should write about. I typically say to people, only write about what you're passionate about. Obviously, you guys know this, you've heard this, you've drunk the Kool-Aid, and you love it, right? Who loves blogging? Who hates blogging? I got 3 hands. That's awesome. I kind of hate it sometimes too, but I love it at the same time. Never try and blog or do things that you're not passionate about. What will happen is you'll do it for a couple months, and you'll be really, really good, and then nothing will be happening, or you won't get the kind of success that you want. And you'll get discouraged and you'll stop completely out there. Versus if you enjoy writing about something and enjoy doing it, this will help you in the grand scheme of things to really enjoy it and love, not just, like for me, not just driving people to my business, but I love influencing people and really truly helping people online. So when I'm talking online and when I'm blogging and when I'm writing for some of these influential sites, I'm not sitting there, hey, check out my company, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. I'm just casually mentioning an amazing post that I wrote in the past or referencing an article. And truly, if people love the content that you're putting out, they'll purchase anything or come back to you at any time. So I find right now I get about a 2 to 3% of my articles, 2 to 3% of the people, if it's a really good article, will come back to my site. And almost purchase anything I put in front of them. It's amazing the things I put in front of people to buy, and they've been like, sure, just because they trust and they love the content that I put out. So Huffington Post, Ariana at Huffington Post, that does get you a thing. I don't know how long that's going to last because she just barely left there about a month ago or 2 months ago. So that's a great way to get set up there. So after there, I went to Entrepreneur. Actually, I think I have those out of order. Next, I went to Forbes. And this was a very, very random one. So Forbes, the editor's name was Bruce Upton. He just barely left there a couple months ago, but he's still a really good resource. But Forbes, did you guys know they throw Forbes parties for contributors of Forbes in every city 2 to 3 times a year? So me, this is how I got into Forbes. I, using my clever stalking skills, who else? Good stalkers? Okay, we got some stalkers, still admitting. I was a good stalker. Now, this day, in particular, Murray, my friend up here, supporting me in the front row, was with me. And I don't know, Murray's a really good stalker, but I don't remember. We found out that there was this event, and we walked into the event, and I'm not trying to be mean, by the way, by saying this, but usually the person at the front desk has no clue what's going on. They're hired help. So I walked in with Murray. I don't know if you remember this. He told me we were invited. This is true. So I walked in, and I was like, hey, I'm John Rampton, thank you. Just kind of an asshole, but I walked in, and he walked past me. We were not invited, and we walked in, and we walked past the front person. The front person's like, what's your name? What's your name? And we're like, I'm John Rampton. Are you serious? You don't know who I am? And we walked past, and we walked downstairs. We never heard from that person again. That's how I got into a Forbes party, and I met the editor, I met the main person who started it, and I met a good 40 contributors from Forbes. Needless to say, I became friends with the editor that night, who I could legitimately tell you every name of his children, his wife, his ex-wife, and I could recite the titles of the last 5 posts he had written and his most influential posts that he'd ever written because I had stalked him a lot before this meeting. I was prepared for this. And I went into that meeting knowing a lot about him, and people are like, oh my word, that is really creepy. But you got to know these people. You got to get, I'm not saying get into their minds, but know about them, know what they like, know what they're passionate about. I found that Bruce, for example, he doesn't respond to email, ever. He doesn't like this, he doesn't like that. But at that party, we kind of hit it off, and we were friends, and we were drinking, and we stayed late, and Murray wanted to leave, and blah, blah, blah. And we were there for 3 hours. It was ridiculous. But, question. So I stalked people, and I asked, I found out that there was a party, and I had a friend, and he was like, oh, there's this party maybe at this location, and you can't get in, but good luck. So I asked a bunch of contributors who I knew who had stalked previously, and we found out about that party. Again, typically Forbes, they now do them about once a year. They used to do them 2 to 3 times a year. They do them once a year in all the major cities, so San Francisco, LA, New York, Chicago, and I believe Atlanta, and 1 or 2 other cities. But I became friends with him, and I found out the best way to contact him. Now, again, he's not there, so this won't work, but the best way to contact him was Twitter, direct messages on Twitter. He still has never responded except to get mad at me for an article where I spelled one word wrong. He has never responded to one email I've ever sent to him, and he was my editor. Yet every time I direct messaged him, he'd respond within 10 minutes, and he still responds, which is crazy. You have to know the method of communication and how these people work. So after that, I went to another big site, Entrepreneur Magazine. Does anybody write for Entrepreneur? They're actually one of my favorite places to write for. They're amazing to me. They've been really good. I've written for them now for 4 years. Wait, Zach, you write for them, right? Yeah, he's being modest. Zach writes for a lot of places as well. But I basically went to Entrepreneur Magazine. I found the right editor, and I kind of sucked up a little. I read a bunch of his articles. I looked at his past 150 tweets. I got to know him. I stalked him a little bit. Again, I keep going back to the stalk because it's not a creepy stalk. It's a really nice, comfortable stalk. It's like, we're going back massage, but not like a creepy back massage, a nice one. From someone we like, except he didn't know me. That's weird. But again, like, I got to know that person. His name's Steven. He's still there. He still works there. He still allows people to communicate with him. But I reached out to him and I said, hey, Steven, I write for your biggest competitor, Forbes, and I want to write for you. Here's examples of my posts. Now, this you should do for most of them as well. For example, Businesscom, when you guys apply, they will ask for examples. I like saying theirs is kind of a template for the email that you'll send, because you want to kind of suck up to them, not suck up being like, oh, you're amazing. When I approached him, I said, hey, Steven, I've been a big fan of Entrepreneur. I have these successful things. I write for your competitor, and I want to write for you guys. By the way, here's a little bit of proof for you that I'm actually a legitimate writer and can do things. And I listed 3 articles, and I made sure those were amazing articles that had hundreds of thousands of views and tons of social shares. On some of these platforms, like a Business.com or a Forbes, not necessarily Forbes, but some of the other ones, they'll get enormous amounts of shares. You want to make yourself look as good as possible. So, go ahead. By the way, you guys can ask questions at any time. So.
How long have you been writing before you approached these guys?
So, Entrepreneur, I had been writing about a year for other people. So, going back in the timeline, I wrote for Search Engine Journal for about 3 months. Now, here's something interesting, is I have over 200 articles written for that site. Now, these are all free articles. I don't get paid by these guys. That's 200 articles that I've written. So this isn't easy, and it's not like a short thing. I'm trying to give you the shortest way possible to get to these. But I have put in a lot of work, and I still keep up a lot of these sites, even though, like, for example, Business.com, even though I've gone to a higher level than them, I still probably write for them once a month. And Huffington Post, I syndicate a lot of my stuff to. Entrepreneur, I write twice a week for because they're an amazing site and they syndicate all over and they're really, really good to me. Now, you guys are probably thinking, how the hell does he keep up with this? I write a lot. I also use ghostwriters. That helps me scale my business, my personal writing business. But I would say every article that goes up under my name, I've read through at least twice and added my own flavor, my own this. We also have 2 copy editors and 1 voice editor for every single post. My voice editor is my mom. She helps me because she knows my voice more than anybody else. And that helps me scale my business and scale content. And that helps drive leads and, customer signups. So, Forbes, great. Next, I approached Inc. Go ahead. Here, this conference. So, I would say there's at least 1 person in this room who's a ghostwriter for me, if not 2. But I find a lot of them here. There's a lot of amazing writers here that write amazing content. So this is a really good conference to meet some of the best writers out there. It depends. Sometimes I pay by word. Sometimes I pay by article. It ranges in price as well. I'm typically cheap, but notoriously cheap. But I give consistent work, and I'm long-term thinking, and I would say my average writer right now has been with me for like 3+ years. But seriously, FinCon's a great place to find some of the best writers out there. I'm not just saying that because you guys are in here and we're at the conference, but truly this is a great place to find some of the best writers in the world. And I would say as well, this conference has a lot of undervalued talent which I think a lot of people, especially you guys in the room and other rooms, you know, you guys, I mean, every person here has so much potential and could be so much more. So I want to help you guys with that. So again, any questions? So Inc. is pretty easy. After I got to this point, I'm like, oh, it's easy. It is not easy getting to where I'm at right now in this. But Inc. is contributors@inc.com is how you apply to be there. And you go through a queue, and it takes a long time, typically 2 weeks. Now, I would say do not apply unless you have a lot behind you. So I'd written for Entrepreneur weekly for about 6 months before I approached Inc. Now, if you've written things, if you have a blog, you might be able to jumpstart that process. But it's a lot easier to get into things when you have a lot of credibility behind you. Inc.'s a really great one. They allow me personally to live publish. So I can go onto their site and live publish a post, which is awesome because then I don't have to wait. You know, some of these, for example, Forbes is also live publish. Entrepreneur goes through a queue. When you get signed up, it's anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months. Huffington Post is typically 24 hours to 48 hours to go live. Businesscom right now is taking about 5 to 6 weeks. Search Engine Watch is about 2 weeks. Search Engine Journal is about 2 to 3 weeks for them to publish. So having live publish really, really helps. Go ahead. The question was how am I planning this out? How am I going about my content? Anything else? Yeah, typical size. So my posts typically are a little bit longer. My average post, I'd say, is 800 to 1,200 words. A little bit more thought out content, lots of research. I really like research. But yeah, that's that. As far as how do I plan it out, I typically will come up with titles and plan out my titles. I'll even sometimes ask the publications for them to come up with titles because they know it works. They know it do very, very well. For example, Inc. will send me about two titles a month they want me to write that they will give a little bit of extra promotion. Forbes sends me, I would say, 4 every 4 or 5 months, so like 1 a month. And other people send over titles. I like doing that because then the editors get exactly what they want. Now, that being said, some of them give really weird titles. What was the, Murray, didn't one of them give like top office chair? They wanted something for their sponsors, and it was like office chairs for 2016. And I'm like, this is really boring. But we wrote it. I mean, like, whatever. But most of the time, I come up with a list of titles. I powwow with people like Murray or Zach or other people on titles, and we come up with, we'll literally just sit for 30 minutes on a phone call and crank out titles and make them better and improve them and go back and forth. And what you do is you come up with one idea, and that can come up with like 10 titles, and then I just plan them out. So you'll also get on a calendar. For example, Entrepreneur. I'm a weekly writer. I write 2 times a week, actually, but a weekly writer for them. And they say I have to have my post submitted by X day and X day. A lot of publications are the exact same. So Inc. was a really, really good one. I love Inc. They're great to work with. I would say the difference in publications, just for you guys as you're going, you really need to know the publications that you're writing for and their styles. Some publications that I write for are very, very laid back, and some are very, very uptight. So, for example, when I go visit some editors, there are a few editors that I go in and they're dressed like this, in shorts, khakis, they don't really care. There are other editors that I go and they'll be in a full business suit. So you have to know the type of editor that you're going after and comply to that. And if you meet them in person, be similar to them. Don't be dressed like way up or way down, but get to know your editors. It's usually when the way they dress is the style of writing as well. So for example, an Entrepreneur is again very, very laid back, and Inc. is a little bit more professional. You can't necessarily say certain things or use like slang or different words. So again, this is in your stalking. Get to know some of the editors. So the next one I jumped up to was, question in the back. Do I recycle my comments or content? My topics. Do I recycle my topics? I do not. Occasionally I'll write about the same general thing, but usually not. Usually I won't recycle too much topics, although there's only so much in my brain that it can come up with. But usually I do not. I would say yes and no. She said, is it a bad thing? Yes and no, but different publications are going to have different audiences. And most of the time the audiences won't, like if I write an article on success over here, it's going to do really well there and not do well here. So for example, I wrote a piece on TechCrunch about the freelancer generation and how freelancers are doing and how many there are and that, and it didn't do well on TechCrunch. Like it got maybe 5,000 or 10,000 page views, but for TechCrunch that's not a good post. Versus I wrote it on Mashable and it did over 300,000. So it really depends. That one I did recycle, but most of the time the same topics do not work on different publications. I have personally found. Questions? Any other questions? You guys, no questions stupid, by the way. Just stupid people like me. No, I'm joking.
What your background was before this, writing, and what prompted you to get into this?
Yeah, so the question is what is my background and what made me get into this? So I've always been an entrepreneur, and probably like 8 years ago, I went to a conference and I saw actually Zach right here, who's now a really good friend, and I speak with him at a lot of conferences. Not to promote you, Zach, but he's awesome. I was like, oh my word, there's people making money online. And Zach posted a check where he made like $800,000 in 3 months. Yeah, 800 grand in 3 months. And I was like, oh my word, if he can do it, man, he's an idiot. I can do it. And then there's this other guy named John Chow. God bless his heart, but he's a moron. And I was like, it's true. I love the guy. Like, he's a good friend. But man, I would say, I do say it to his face. But and he was like, yeah, I'm making $40,000 a month blogging. And I'm like, oh man, I can do this. So I was working a job, and I just started blogging on my own personal site, techiemania.com. Pretty awesome, right? Techiemania, it's out of business. I mean, yeah. So I was blogging on that, and I wrote a blog post 3 times a day for 9 months. 3 times a day on average, 600 to 800 words. And guess how much I made after 8 months? I had made about 50 cents, I think, in AdSense. 50 cents, maybe $1, but really no money. And then I read Zach's guide and a few other guides. And my first month after reading his guide, I was like, oh, I should start doing, I didn't even think of that. I should put an ad on the side. And he suggests, like in his book, he's all, put an ad up with like the people you want to be advertisers and leave one spot open. And then the next month, like one of them got taken. And I was like, oh, so I opened up another spot, took one of the big guys off there. Then someone else take it. They want to be like other people. So my first month I made $400. My second month I made over $600. And then 6 months later I was making $2,000 to $3,000 a month off my site. And I was still doing this. And I'm like, oh, that's what got me into it, was content. So then it cascaded from then. I wanted to start getting my voice out there more and more and more and more. I ended up selling that site, did very, very well. I literally made enough on that site to live for the next 3 years. I was at college, right after college, so I didn't have to live on very much. But I then started building products and services, and no one would write about them. So I was like, man, this is an awesome product, but nobody's writing about my product. So I was like, I'm going to start getting out there, and that allows me to help other people by talking about how to do this whole blogging thing and this and that. And I can kind of promote my product a little bit inside of that. And again, I'm not promotional. I'm not like, hey, check out this. Buy my product. It's more I'm helping people out, and that it drags people back. If it's a really good article, people will find you. So that's how I got into it, and why I believe that writing for some of these big sites will help me in my business, because it's a very influence. It also drives links, which links help in Google. So, question. What if you what? Then do video. There's people, entrepreneurial will accept video. Business.com will accept video. Lots of people will accept video. Now you do have to have the relationships and the stalking to find out who, but there are a lot of people who accept video and do that. For example, there are people who do video great, who are always looking for video. There's tons of sites out there. Like in our space, I know Money Crashers does a lot of video. I think Go Banking Rates does. You might have to talk with them on the videos and stuff. But, I mean, those are just in our space. I'm sure there are a million other. I'm not in video. I don't do any video. There's people who are really good at video, like Murray up here. He's got, 50 million fine views and I don't know how many millions of YouTube subscribers and views and everything. There are people who are really good at it. I hate it. I think it's annoying. So I've never gotten into that. But, I mean, it's the same process. It's getting to know the right people and then working your way up from one to another, next, and then ultimately getting what you need. So, question? Correct. So the question was, for some of these sites like Business.com or others, do you have to have a good social following? No. They don't necessarily. I mean, I have a really good social following, but I built that up over the years. But I didn't have a good social following when I started. That was a consequence of my writing. I get a lot of people that follow me, and now I actually work at that and do a lot in that space. But they're looking for good content, and if you can put out good, amazing content that helps their readers and truly makes a difference to their site, that's what all sites are looking for. The promotion is great. And it gives me a competitive edge to go after some of the bigger sites. The smaller sites are just fine with a smaller social following. So I talk a lot about stalking. What is my favorite stalking tool? Facebook. This loophole, it's covered up now, and I think 7 years have passed for my statute of limitations. No, I'm just joking. But Facebook, again, this is terrible, and you guys can't repeat this. It's not on camera, so just mute this part. You used to be able to look on Facebook, and you know how it says friends? Like see profile, how your friends see your profile. You used to be able to go into that, and if you opened up your messages, it opened up their messages, and you could see everything. It was a big flaw in Facebook's thing, and you could actually then click on it. You clicked in the right top-hand corner into the home and password, and you could change their password and do all sorts of things. So that allowed me unlimited access to whatever I wanted, and it allowed you to do it into any person's account. That has now been covered up. So, there's lots of different things. You can do SQL injections. Again, that's getting more technical and doing a few other things. But just, Googling on the internet, you can find so much. Anything you put out there nowadays is online. Everybody's like, oh my word, he really is a creepy stalker. Yeah, I was a creepy stalker back in the day. But I'm still a creepy stalker. But you can find anything online. If you ever want, give me a person's name and just watch the way I do things. My wife the other day was like, I understand, this creeps me out. I was doing correlations that, oh my word, she checked in on this. She checked in on Foursquare to a hair location 3 years ago, and this person at the hair is her stylist. And then I found, because I couldn't find her on Facebook because there's a million, but I saw that there's no picture. She checked in on Facebook. Here's a stylist. I went and looked at that stylist friend, found friends in common. I searched her name, went, and then I found her, and then I could find anything from there. So again, you can do little correlations on people. Again, that's getting very stalker, and people are like, oh my word, I don't want to know this guy. I saw like 1 or 2 looks. Judgers, you're judging me. But usually the general internet will tell you everything you want to know about a person. Again, you guys put anything out there, there's nothing private nowadays. Absolutely nothing. One of the best ways to do it is Facebook groups. If you ever want to find out a little bit more about a person, this is horrible, don't really share it, and don't judge me for being creepy. But if you go look, and a lot of people are like, oh, I'm getting married, send me your address. People don't unsubscribe and delete those after. So if you go into a person's Facebook and you look at public groups, which are always public on their page, you can go to send me your address, click on that, and just scroll through and find a person's address very, very easily. So just a reference for you guys, go delete those after and unsubscribe from those, because those will give away your home addresses and phone numbers and everything. So. Yep. Yeah, so a lot of sites do pay. Inc. pays. Forbes pay. Forbes actually does not pay a whole lot. Inc. pays decently. TechCrunch pays some people, but not others. I'm not paid by them. I don't submit. They want most of the time. So to let you guys know, Inc. I'm required to have 7 or 8 posts every single month up, so 2 posts a week. Same with Forbes, 2 posts a week. I'm unable to be paid. If I don't keep that up, I don't get paid. So I always keep it up. But again, it's not moving numbers. Like a lot of companies here, you know, there are certain banks or things like that that will pay in the multiple hundreds of dollars. Unless you have a good hit on one of these sites, they do not pay very well. I do it for exposure, not to get paid. Questions? Yeah. Correct. It's perfect. Yeah, I don't ever want to send anything that's not perfect. So, yeah. I would say it is definitely not a loss leader because I track where they come from and where people are referred from, and I would say overall it does well and drives, and I back it out in different ways. So it helps me drive user engagement and more people to our site. So yes, it's a loss leader when you think about, oh, like I'm writing this, I'm losing money, I'm spending thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars a month on content. But overall, it does well. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of demand it. Most of the time it's a relationship with the editor, and I say, hey, I want to make, a lot of editors will just copy a bio and put it in there, and it doesn't like faze them. They don't think in that way. But I am always like, hey, can you please link that up? I want people, and I would say like I never go after places. A lot of editors will strip the links, and I don't really care because I'm not necessarily going for links. I'm going for, helping people out. And then if you truly help someone, they're going to follow you. They're going to love on you and purchase anything you put in front of them. I'm sure a lot of people can attest to that. But if you don't get a link, you can ask for it. If they say no, then don't worry about it. I would say there's a lot of people that strip things. For example, like no judgment, U.S. News strips a lot of links. So I won't write for them because I want links and stuff like that. And it hasn't helped me out in the past. There are lots of other big sites that I won't write for because they strip. Yeah. For me, yes. Google is tracking, but a link is easier for me to track. So I can't necessarily correlate that I wrote a post on TechCrunch and it has no link back to me. I can't correlate that data. So to someone who's paying for it, like, the revenue guy or the money man at whatever your company, or your wife or husband or spouse or partner, when they're like, we spent how much on this and how much time on this and it didn't drive anything, and you're like, well, it has my mention, like I know it's driving something. I like the links because it correlates that back for me. Question? But again, if it doesn't happen and they strip it, I'm not pissed or bugged. It still helps me out. Everything helps in some way. Yep. Yeah, you just go into your referral data under analytics on the left-hand side, audiences, and then overview, and then go to referral sources, and then click into specifically Inc. or Business.com, and you can see exactly how many did it. And when you click into Business.com, it'll show you the exact URLs and where they came from. And then make sure on your site that you have like email signups or this tracked in goals, and then you can go to goals and correlate that data and see what works. So yeah, I track everything. Yeah, I use Google Analytics. I highly recommend it, and it's free, and it takes 2 seconds to install. Goals is a little more tricky. That'll take someone a little bit more technical, but it's still very, very simple to do. In copywriting, in editing, in time, in ghostwriters, yeah. So, but that's where I'm at, and I put out a lot of content. You know, it doesn't have to cost you anything but time. I mean, write some posts and put them out. So, question right there. Like to trade like information, or what do you mean? Usually, most of the people aren't really talking to me. I mean, I do this because I love this community and stuff like that. I love helping people out, so, you know, that. But usually there's not communities that are like, oh, here's how I got into this magazine. A lot of people don't want you to get in there because if more people get in, for example, when I started writing for Entrepreneur, my post did a lot better. And there was probably only like 30 contributors. And now there's, I believe, over 400. And each one of those are submitting more content, so it means less eyeballs. Obviously, there's going to be more eyeballs on their content because they're putting out more, but less overall on my thing. So it doesn't really help me to get more people in. Go ahead. Most of the sites, yes, they allow you 1 to 2 weeks after to republish. I am really lazy. I wish I could be a lot better at that. I have so much content, but it's a time issue for me, and I don't have time to do that. So, any more questions? So next I wrote for TechCrunch. This was attending an event, and I asked every single TechCrunch writer at the place who the editor was so I could contribute content. I also asked every single person who contributed content on Twitter or on TechCrunch who the main person was to get a hold of. TechCrunch also has a submit button where they say, hey, submit a post to us. It doesn't work. Like, I've never seen one go live there, and I've tried with like 10 different people. But, you know, I went to all these events and I found the right person. So again, it's the right person. Then after TechCrunch, that's when I found Mashable. And again, that's what the talk's about today, how to write for Mashable. But I basically went to Mashable and I said, hey, you guys, I write for one of your biggest competitors, TechCrunch. I write about startups and the cool things and the evolution and what's going on, and I want to write for you guys. And they were like, we'll give you a shot. So they gave me a shot. It was great. I wrote an article. It was great. It did epic. Now, I didn't really go into a little bit of how and when I approach people. So just to let you guys know, the best time ever and the most success rate that I get with authors is between 6:30, editors and authors, 6:30 and 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Typically, I find most people work on that, even West Coast. A lot of them work early in the morning to 4:30, 5:30, because news happens then. And if they're not ahead of news, they're behind it. Also know that they probably won't respond to you all the time. so you may have to follow up once or twice. So literally stop feeling rejected, because you will feel rejected. I've sent hundreds of pitches out to countless different people at TechCrunch, Mashable, all these different places. I felt like an idiot. Most of the time, emails do not work. I've met almost every single one of these, editors in person at conferences like this. For example, here at this conference, I know there's editors from a lot of big places. You just have to find them. I've seen CBS, one of the editors here. Who did we meet last year? MSN Money. I know Yahoo. The main editor of Yahoo is here. Time, Fortune, Money's here, and a lot of other really big places are here at FinCon. You just have to know and be paying attention. So, and again, stalk them. Stop. Also, don't be annoying. There's nothing worse than being annoying to a lot of these editors. Following up over and over and over and over will not get you anywhere. So you guys, that's how you become an online influencer / write for all these different sites.